Welcome to all the admirers of Sheikh Hamdan, where love, poetry, and royalty weave a tale that leaves hearts trembling and souls awakened. Tonight, I bring you a breathtaking revelation that has shaken the golden corridors of the Maktoum palace. His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the ruler, the poet, the father, has changed his decision. A decision once rigid as marble, now softened by the fire of his son's unshakable love. The tides have turned, and in the heart of a father, compassion has conquered doubt. This is not just a change, it is the rebirth of hope, of dreams long denied, and the validation of a love too powerful to be hidden any longer. For months, Sheikh Hamdan lived between duty and desire, loyalty and longing. He stood poised beneath the weight of tradition, eyes fixed on a future that felt forbidden. He loved her, not for her crown or name, not for wealth or lineage, but for the way her voice quieted his storms, the way her silence whispered truths the world refused to hear. She was older, wiser, cloaked in dignity. And while many mocked, she became his solace. Yet his father's disapproval was a mountain he could not climb. Until now. Until love itself decided to roar so loud, even the strongest fathers must listen. One evening under the Dubai skies, Sheikh Mohammed called his son into the grand majlis, the scent of oud lingering in the air. "My son," he said, "I have watched you from afar, not as a ruler watches his heir, but as a father watches his only heartbeat crumble." The silence that followed was deeper than the desert night. "You taught me something even the years failed to teach me. That love is not always where we expect it to be, but always where it's needed most." Sheikh Hamdan's eyes, heavy with hope, widened. This was no ordinary conversation. This was permission. This was prophecy. Sheikh Mohammed walked slowly toward the mosaic window where stars twinkled like promises. "You chose a woman not out of convenience, but out of conviction. That is the kind of courage a kingdom needs. If your love for her has brought you closer to who you are, then how can I, your father, stand in its way?" And just like that, the chains shattered. A father's pride bowed before a son's purpose. The fire of resistance turned into the warmth of support. In that moment, Hamdan didn't just gain approval, he gained legacy. The very next day, the royal palace sent out a quiet but clear message to the world. The forbidden name was no longer forbidden. She, once whispered in corners, was now spoken with grace. She, who was once kept in the shadows, was now walking beside the crown prince in daylight. And as the palace gates opened for her, so did the hearts of many who had once judged. Sheikh Mohammed stood at the center of it all, not as a ruler chained to old rules, but as a father who allowed love to rewrite the laws of his own heart. Sheikh Hamdan wrote a new poem that night, a letter to time itself. He inked it with fire, sealed it with truth. "My father," he penned, "was not born in my generation, but tonight he stood beside me as though we were brothers. He did not understand my love in the beginning, but he never stopped listening. And that, I believe, is the true mark of a king, not how he holds power, but how he releases control when it no longer serves love." The city rejoiced in hushed awe. The streets of Dubai, shimmering with golden lights, carried the echo of poetry through every souk and tower. The tale of the older woman, once cloaked in scandal, became a ballad of acceptance. People who once sneered, now celebrated. The love that had once lived in exile now wore royal robes. And amid all this, Sheikh Hamdan whispered to her, "They finally see you through my eyes. And now, my love, you are free to bloom in your full glory." In private, Sheikh Mohammed began writing again. A poem unlike any he had ever written. It wasn't about war or wisdom, nor horses or heritage. It was about surrendering to love's greater truth. "My son's heart was not mine to mold," he wrote, "but his courage became my guide. The woman he loves may be older, but in her, I have found the soul I never expected to admire. She is not just his choice, she is now part of my legacy too." The winds that once howled against their union now sang blessings over them. The court that once hesitated to embrace her now rose in her presence. And Sheikh Hamdan, the poet prince, held her hand not as a man defying his destiny, but as one fulfilling it. He kissed her forehead beneath the moon, whispering, "We did it, beloved. We didn't wait for the world to understand. We just waited for the one heart that mattered most. And now, even the crown bows to our love." The power of a father's change of heart transformed the fate of a royal romance. In every pulse of the city, from the dunes to the palace, a new rhythm played. One that said age does not define worth, and rules must sometimes bend to make way for what is rare and real. Sheikh Mohammed's change was not just a personal gesture, it was a cultural earthquake. And Sheikh Hamdan's faith in love, unyielding and bold, became the very reason that change was possible. This, dear fans, is not just a story. It is a legacy in motion. A declaration that true love is not ashamed of time, not afraid of tradition, and not willing to remain a secret. Let the world know, Sheikh Hamdan loved boldly, and his father, once the firm wall, became the open door. And through that door, walked a queen born not of age or status, but of depth, resilience, and timeless love. So here ends the silence, and begins the song. Sheikh Mohammed's decision has changed, but more importantly, his heart has grown. From rejection to recognition, from distance to embrace. And Sheikh Hamdan? He stands taller now, not because he won a battle, but because he healed an inheritance. This love story will be remembered not just for its poetry, but for the way it rewrote the rules of royalty forever. In the days that followed, whispers turned into songs, and the palace walls that once guarded silence now echoed with laughter and the sounds of preparation. For the first time, Sheikh Hamdan's beloved walked through the inner gardens, welcomed not as a guest but as a future member of the royal family. The guards bowed lower. The maids smiled wider. Even the falcons perched quietly, sensing the shift in energy. The woman who had once been spoken of in secrecy now moved through the golden halls as if she were born there. Her elegance, her grace, her poised silence, everything about her seemed destined for this. Sheikh Mohammed watched her from afar, his eyes narrowed not in judgment, but in observation. He saw the way she carried herself, the way she placed a hand on Hamdan's back when he spoke, the way she bowed her head when elders passed. In her, he began to see not only a woman worthy of his son, but a queen whose loyalty would never bend under pressure. Her presence reminded him of his late mother, a woman of fire hidden beneath silks. Slowly, his own heart began to soften, not because tradition allowed it, but because love had proved itself louder than legacy. At a royal gathering held beneath the stars, Sheikh Hamdan stood with her by his side, hand in hand, before family and dignitaries from every corner of the Emirates. There were skeptics in the crowd, their eyes flickering with unease. But there were also believers, those who had seen the way Hamdan had changed since she entered his life. He was calmer, deeper, more poetic. His soul had thickened like the pages of his journals. She had not distracted him from duty, she had deepened his vision of it. And as they stood before the people, Hamdan made no formal speech. He simply kissed the back of her hand and said, "My strength is not mine alone. She stands beside me." Sheikh Mohammed stepped forward next, his traditional robe shimmering under the moonlight. He looked to the crowd and then to her. "A leader must lead by courage, but a father must surrender by love," he said softly. "Tonight, I surrender. Not in defeat, but in devotion. For what my son has taught me is this: the heart has reasons even time cannot explain. And this woman, whom he has chosen with unwavering loyalty, shall be respected and cherished by this house as one of our own." The applause that followed wasn't thunderous, but it was honest. And in that sound, history shifted. That night, in the privacy of the royal garden, Sheikh Hamdan held her close, away from cameras and the chaos of celebrations. The moonlight kissed her cheek, and his words danced like perfume between them. "All my life," he whispered, "I thought I'd have to fight the world to love you. But tonight, I realized the world only needed to witness the truth. You weren't the storm, beloved, you were the light that guided me through it. And now, my father sees what I always saw. My home begins with you." She closed her eyes, the wind weaving through her hair, and for the first time, she felt truly royal. In the days that followed, the palace prepared for what many thought would never come, a union not arranged by power or politics, but by poetry. The announcement was simple, yet groundbreaking. "With great pride, we announce the forthcoming union of Sheikh Hamdan bin Mohammed and the woman who has illuminated his soul. Let age not be a measure, but love be the compass." Across Dubai, reactions were mixed, but one truth stood untouched: Hamdan's heart had spoken, and no title, no rule, no distance could mute it now. Even the poets of the region, once hesitant to immortalize a love so unconventional, began composing verses in their honor. Songs emerged from the mountains of Ras Al Khaimah to the coasts of Abu Dhabi, calling her the Rose of Patience, and him the Falcon who waited. She became a symbol, not just of love's triumph, but of every woman who had ever been told she was too old, too late, or too unworthy. Her face, once hidden, now became a muse for the nation's new era of romance and rebellion. Sheikh Hamdan, in private, wrote another poem, one he would never share publicly. He titled it When My Father Bent to Love. In it, he described the night he saw his father cry, not tears of grief or guilt, but of realization. He wept not because he lost control, but because he gained clarity. He saw you through my eyes and wondered why he ever doubted. And in that moment, I knew, I had not just gained a partner in you, I had healed something ancient in him. It was this poem that he sealed inside a locket and placed around her neck one night as she slept. The royal stables, once Hamdan's only escape during those difficult days, now stood empty for hours. He no longer needed to gallop away to find peace. Peace had come to him, soft-footed and steady-hearted. His horses, his camels, his desert sunsets, all the things that once filled the void, now became blessings he longed to share with her. Together, they began planning not just a wedding, but a life outside the pages of obligation, a life of slow mornings, shared books, long rides into the dunes, and laughter that echoed through the corridors of a kingdom that had finally accepted its beating heart. When the wedding day finally arrived, it was not the glitter or gold that captured the people's gaze. It was the quiet way Sheikh Hamdan looked at her as she walked toward him. It was the tears in Sheikh Mohammed's eyes as he placed her hand in his son's. And it was the poem read aloud in the grand hall. This is not a marriage of perfection. This is a union of souls that refuse to surrender. May we all learn from their fight, from their truth, and from the day a father said yes, not because he was forced to, but because love had softened his crown. And as the music swelled and the stars bowed over the palace, the world watched not a royal ceremony, but the crowning of a love story that dared to bloom outside the garden of expectation. In a land where tradition rules, this love had gently bent the rules. And in doing so, it carved a path for every future heart to follow. Sheikh Hamdan and his beloved didn't just change a decision, they changed history with nothing but tenderness, truth, and the fearless poetry of